Welcome back to The Art of Zeus, a series on intermediate and advanced concepts of Arma 3 Zeus game mode. In this episode, we'll be focusing on the full suite of Zeus Game Master controls and the types of players that make up your mission. I was originally planning on having this lesson a little later in the series, but I realized that other videos may have more meaningful implications if the full range of Game Master controls are understood beforehand. Almost all of these can be found in the settings menu, but most players probably haven't looked through there. First off, let's start with the camera controls. WASD pans the camera forward, left, backwards, and right respectively. Holding the right click and moving the mouse controls camera rotation. Scroll wheel controls the zoom, and Q and Z control camera elevation. Camera control is probably the most important skill for a game master to be proficient in. A GM who can effortlessly maneuver the camera can spend more time on the tasks that affect the mission. The speed that the camera pans is directly related to how high off the ground the camera is, with the camera slowing to a crawl when close to the ground and faster than any jet when high in the air. This behavior is necessary to allow the GM to make precise camera adjustments when near the ground, such as moving into a nearby room, or more sweeping movements when they need to pan the camera to the next town over. There are situations where the GM needs to move the camera across the entire map. For this, there's the viewport warp. Opening your map and clicking the middle mouse button will instantly teleport your camera viewport to that point on the map, preserving all other camera properties such as angle, height. Another way to warp to another location is the spacebar, which will snap the camera to the player who last pinged Zeus. If you ever said, "Who just pinged me?" as GM, save yourself breath in the future and just press the spacebar. Asking around just makes you look inexperienced. If you want to check what a unit can see and not see, use the point of view button, which is bound to numpad enter by default. This allows you to enter the point of view of the selected unit. This includes players. Finally, we have the hide interface button, backspace by default, which hides all Game Master UI elements except for a small Zeus watermark on the bottom right. This toggle is invaluable for checking how objects look when placed close to each other and the UI icons overlap, or for taking screenshots. Alternatively, you can collapse the sections of the Objects menu on the left to hide UI icons. If you only want to hide certain types of objects, such as buildings or AI, you can do so here without collapsing the rest of the interface. A good GM should use most of these controls through the course of any mission they preside over. If you didn't know everything mentioned in this section before this video, take some time in the editor to familiarize yourself with them before jumping into your next Zeus session. As you may have noticed in the background gameplay, my camera is almost always moving. As a GM, your camera should never be idle. Looking around your mission should be second nature, be it ensuring no objects are floating, checking on players, ordering AI, adjusting parameters. Make sure you are always on the move. With camera controls out of the way, we can turn over to the editing controls, which I define as any action that alters an existing object. Most of these are pretty obvious and self-explanatory. Alt-click controls object elevation, used for placing an object on an elevated surface or snapping it back to the ground. It should be noted that some objects will have an extra effect when dragged high enough into the air. Crewed helicopters will automatically enter a hovering state even if their engine was previously off. Jets will power up and instantly accelerate in the direction they're facing. AI will automatically deploy a parachute even if they have a backpack. Besides the unit placement, fog from the change weather module will slave the location and elevation to the module. Elevation, not altitude. Placing a weather module on a mountain peak will yield vastly different results than the same module placed in a valley. Player respawn points placed above 50 meters will cause players to drop with a parachute. Vehicles and ammo boxes will also automatically deploy chutes. Similarly, shift plus left mouse button controls rotation, and like elevation, can be performed on anything but players. When rotating, be mindful of terrain, as elevation is only changed if an object would end up underground due to the rotation. If you aren't careful, you can accidentally leave rotated objects floating a few feet above the air, which is difficult to perceive from the editor camera. Control C and Control V control copy and paste. I'm constantly surprised how few GMs know this, and fewer still understands the significance of copy-paste functionality. Using copy-paste can make large bases take only seconds to set up. When copying items, rotation and mouse offset are saved as part of the copy. It's also worth noting that the unit properties are not preserved over a copy and a paste. A unit that is pasted will have default properties such as skill levels, constants, etc., but will inherit the side of the copied unit. Moving away from the building side of things, the next editing control is delete and end, which, as the names imply, delete and destroy objects, respectively. This is useful for creating desolate battlegrounds or cleaning up assets across the map, and is basically mandatory that you should already know this. Waypoints are created with right-click, and patrol circuits are created with Alt-Control-Click, with each click adding an additional waypoint onto the circuit. Waypoints, unit properties, vehicles, ammo crates, and modules can be edited with double left mouse button, each having their own contextual UI. Finally, there's the Force Eject hotkey, G. This is probably the most secret of Zeus commands, if you can even call Zeus controls secret, with many GMs resorting to threats of lightning, IEDs, tanks, or whatever else they can think of to try and kick a player out of a vehicle that they may have gotten into by mistake, or Zeus may have allowed them by mistake. This is also useful for forcing AI out of a vehicle. Just note that when you're trying to force players out of a vehicle, you have to select the squad icon of their squad leader and press G. Just selecting the vehicle that you want them to get out of will yield no effect. I'm sure after uploading this video I will remember a few controls that I missed or left out, but this should be enough for some players to have learned something. If you already knew everything in this video, then congratulations, that's a good sign that you know what you're doing. If not, don't worry, this series will guide you towards becoming a great GM. Now moving on to types of players. If you feel like I've left out an important persona, please leave a comment saying so. Players in public Zeus matches are a unique breed. They mostly enjoy teamwork, have reasonably high expectations, and come in a variety of flavors. Most of these players can be categorized into a handful of groups that closest resembles their playstyle. Some of these groups you want, others you don't. I encourage you as a viewer to try and find which bucket you fall into when playing, and reflect on how your actions may have affected matches for better or worse. Since this is a series on Zeus, it's fitting that we start with the types of GMs, specifically the bad kinds, and what makes them bad. 1. The Railroader. If you're at all familiar with D&D, which you should be at least a little bit since this is Zeus game mode we're talking about, which is directly modeled off of Dungeons & Dragons, then you should already know what a Railroad GM is. For those who don't, a Railroader is a game master who creates a mission that is effectively on rails, aka a railroad. They have a story set in their heads they've been fantasizing about, and they aren't going to let any meddling players fuck it up. These GMs are easily identified by their tendency to force players to play a mission their way. They will punish anybody who strays from the path they have set and have decided is the correct way to accomplish an objective. They prefer linear objectives that leave little room for interpretation or deviation, such as a convoy. They justify their zealous punishments by saying the player was trolling or not working with the team. While there's nothing wrong with having an idea for a mission or creating an obvious method for which that objective should or could be completed, you should never punish players for thinking outside the box or completing it in a way you didn't think of. As a GM, you cannot hear what is happening in side chat or group chat. That lone player you're about to smite may actually be doing what he's told by the squad leader, and in doing so, you may be about to accidentally piss off the entire server. The first timer. Not much to say here that isn't obvious. Don't try and GM for the first time in a public Zeus server. While it's not totally impossible to make a good mission on your first try, it's more likely that your slow reflexes and unfamiliarity with the interface will end your mission in disaster. If you are interested in being a GM, launch the editor and play around with a mission by yourself until you're comfortable with what you're doing. Everybody has to start somewhere, but don't set yourself up for failure. Number 3. Mr. Roleplay Everything.
Come on, officer, I'm fine.
We let the guy through with
clothes
the
off now.
armed
We're going
weapon.
to detain.
Search ya!
He's cooperating.
No,
I tell you.
won't.
There'll be an entire episode devoted to communication and roleplay coming very soon, so this will only be an overview, as I could talk about this guy for a while. The role-playing GM will always act as command, or a voice in the sky, giving you free intel, objectives, backstory, and radio chatter constantly. They love objectives that let them talk in character, such as a checkpoint. The problem with Mr. Roleplay is twofold. First, they always end up metagaming their own mission, which cheapens the experience for people who actually want to play the mission. Second, they clutter up voice channel incessantly with their ceaseless talking, which often causes communication breakdowns that they can't even see, since people cannot communicate on side or group chat when they are talking in global. If this is you, shut up. There's an objective module and a hint module. Use them. Your voice is not as sexy as you think it is, especially not for extended durations. The random GM. On the opposite side of Mr. Roleplay, there's the random GM, who will create a mission that has absolutely no overarching story or purpose. Players generally have no inkling of why they're doing what they're doing, and each objective has no connection to the last one. This kind of GM will use a broad array of objectives, so they cannot be identified by the type of objective other than that they have no connection to each other. The never-ending GM. The last in this list of common bad game masters is the never-ending GM. This GM will create a myriad of missions spanning the entire map, and their missions, even if they are not poorly made, will continue for hours upon hours. While these game masters can sometimes be very experienced, they don't share the GM slot, which in itself is poor manners. Elongated missions can introduce other problems like building fatigue and player fatigue, or even poor server performance. Other people may want to try their hand at Game Master, and if you are a never-ending GM, you're not letting them have the opportunity to share what they want to build. Learning to step down is important. This list is not exhaustive, but it covers some of the more prominent types of bad GMs. The reasons why the actions these GMs display are detrimental will be discussed in a different video. I won't list the good kinds of GMs because there is no definitive correct way to be a good GM. Each of these profiles is simply a collection of habits that together create a stereotypical player, and I don't want this video to be 3 hours long describing every single way a GM can be bad. Moving on to types of players. This time I will discuss good and bad kinds of players because it's very important that you know which kinds are in your server if you're a game master. 1. The troll. Getting this out of the way first, the troll is, well, a troll. Team killing, firing rockets into the sunset, irritating other players. The troll is the worst kind of player. They are completely useless in terms of the overarching mission and should be disposed of and removed from the server as quickly as possible with as little communication as possible, full stop. The memester. Next to the troll, this player is the most annoying and detrimental to any mission. They constantly talk in side or global and get their kicks from mocking your mission. If left unchecked, one of these players can cause more damage than even the most destructive troll, since they're not quickly identified or as disruptive as a troll. What makes it worse is that as a GM, you don't even know what's happened until the damage is done because they talk on side. Memesters rarely take an objective seriously, which hurts everybody, and are generally the reason Zeus has such a toxic reputation in the Arma community. If you're one of these kind of players, I implore you to stop. It may be fun for you and your friends, but you're actively ruining many players' experience with the game mode, even if it seems like most people are enjoying your jokes at the time. The more reserved players do not enjoy this kind of behavior and will often leave with a bad taste in their mouth and attribute the game mode as the crux of the problem rather than you. There's a time and a place for humor, but Zeus is not that place. If you've ever had a mission fall apart and you don't know why, odds are it was a memester pulling the strings and you didn't even notice. 3. Stream of conscious. I generally don't use the word squeaker, but this group of players is disproportionately younger than the mean of most players. For some god-awful reason, they really need you to know what's happening to them at all times. These players would be fantastic teammates if they would just shut the fuck up on voice. Sadly, in almost all cases, they either lack the resolve to keep off voice once you bring up the problem, or they take it as a personal attack when you tell them to talk less and become more irritated and inflamed. These kind of players are also more often than not a role-playing GM. Getting control of this kind of player is easy. Ask them to stop talking. Bring it to their attention that they're being annoying, and raise your voice only if the problem continues. 4. Rambo. Ever had a stealth objective go down the tubes because of that one guy? He was likely a Rambo. Rambos have one-track minds: see enemy, shoot gun. They often run ahead on objectives when the rest of the team is going too slow for their liking. This problem is sometimes magnified because players tend to go slowest when they're working well in a group, which is the ideal situation and setup for any mission. Rambos are hard to deal with because the problem is in their nature. They don't like lulls in action. Rambos are happiest when bullets are flying in abundance, and they won't complain or become a troll so long as there's some kind of action going on. The Beggar. If you play Zeus enough, you know this one was going to be here. The Beggar is exactly who it sounds like, somebody who begs. Beggars act just like spoiled children. They want the fancy gun, they want the shiny jet, and they want the pretty tank. And if they don't get what they want, they're going to throw a tantrum. The most common form of begging is asking for an arsenal or a piloting role. Never give a beggar what they want. Also, don't confuse begging with reasonably made requests. Repairing a broken tire on a truck isn't begging, but that doesn't mean you have to fix it out of principle. The pilot. A subset of the beggar, although a very large subset, the pilot just wants to fly. They don't care where, and they don't care what, but they are happier when that object they're flying has guns. This kind of player is everywhere, and if you play Zeus enough, you know exactly what happens on site or global when the GM places down or indicates that there might be a helicopter or a jet in the mission. Pilots also tend to be extremely paranoid if they ever do get an airborne vehicle, constantly reminding other players to stay out of the pilot's seat and threatening to team kill anybody who looks like they might try and take their precious vehicle. If a server has too many pilots, it's a good idea to do an objective that involves no flight whatsoever, as the tension created by choosing a pilot on the ground causes problems for your mission. The bad players out of the way, let's move on to who you do want in your mission. The Leader. Rarer than a literal unicorn, the Leader is a mythical beast that single-handedly turns the server into pure gold and cut gemstones. A Leader wields the power to tame and organize players on the ground, without the Zeus having to interfere. They are charismatic and level-headed, usually with a milsim background. If it isn't already obvious, a Leader is the rarest and most desirable kind of player in a Zeus server. Do not confuse somebody who can lead with a Leader. They are worlds apart. The key difference being that the Leader persona player does not need to threaten people to get them to organize. He understands how players' minds work and is able to use that understanding to create an enjoyable experience for everybody involved. There are two kinds of players a Leader cannot tame, the Troll and the Memester. The Troll because they are trolls, and the Memester because they get their kicks out of mocking any kind of deliberate team effort. Any seriousness or immersion that a Leader can create is ruined by a Memester. The most memorable missions players have of Zeus is normally under the command of a Leader. The Team Player. If you enjoy teamwork in Zeus, this is likely you. The team player enjoys working as a team, regardless of the objective or the outcome. They communicate well, but not enough to be annoying or overbearing, and take orders when appropriate. The downside of a team player is that their desire to work as a team can lead them taking on the lowest common denominator as a baseline. If the server is working well, they work well, and vice versa. The world needs more team players. The Good Admin. A subset of all admins, the Good Admin knows what to do and when to do it. They get rid of team killers faster than people can complain about them, keep the server in order without going off the handle or letting the power go to their head.
Nah, fuck it. I'm gonna use this as a punishment myself, so...
Alright.
Good things come to those who wait on the trigger. Those who don't end up getting fucked. Nobody was given the fucking order to shoot the civilians, so no one should have shot the civilian. Everyone was told over and over again that we want to shoot civilians, so everyone could take the punishment for one guy's fuck up. Except we're not working out who it was, we're just punishing everybody. And anyone who decides to take the drive up to the North Airfield, or walk, for that matter, to go get a vehicle, ain't getting shit. This is why they don't allow retards in the military anymore. They want guys who can think for themselves.
And we get it. Someone fucked up. No need to.
But it's a
but
game.
okay, it's a game, yes, but it's perfectly
How
fine
the
for me to get
fuck did
salty
we
about
manage
it.
to do that? Hey Clark, get the hell out of the hunter.
If you can't follow rules within
Gotcha.
a game, you can't follow them in real life. If you can't pay attention to what someone says, then you ain't gonna get anywhere
move
in
it up a
life.
bit.
A game or not, people enjoy the realism in this. Okay, this game, labeled as a military sim.
You are doing
right?
more to ruin
Military
this
sim.
immersion for people than anybody else in the server. Shut the fuck up. A good admin will be able to keep players focused on the mission or objective rather than each other, and has no problem removing an ineffective Zeus when the time is right. Now, it's great that we have some information about these common player groups, but it's important to know how each of these players affect a server that consists of an amalgamation of different groups of players. Depending on the player base, each mission or objective may play out in different ways. As a GM, your flexibility and ability to adapt to different group dynamics presented to you by your players is critical. Remember, the mission isn't about you, it's about them. One group of players may think your mission is the greatest thing since sliced bread, while another group may think it's complete garbage, even if both groups are presented the exact same mission. Understanding your players is key to creating an enjoyable experience for everybody, and it saves yourself a lot of stress. Before you get any ideas in your head, it's not practical to just kick every kind of bad player, so just take that off the table. You'll only succeed in ruining your reputation in the community, which as an aspiring GM you really don't want. Over the course of a match, a bad player can turn good and a good player can turn bad. So put forward the level of effort you expect to see from your player base and never sink to their level. The Game Master sets the tone of a mission, and keeping your composure in stressful situation against antagonistic players will help move the mood of the server in a favorable direction. This isn't to say you should ignore problem players. Doing so might just make the situation worse. Stay calm, think before you reply, and keep your focus on the mission. Sure, that guy may be an asshole, but you are ultimately responsible for your own actions. If you're a ground player who doesn't GM much, be the change you want to see in Zeus. Every time you joke around or get petty revenge by team killing or spam global, you are willfully becoming part of the problem. Keep your cool and enjoy the mission.